Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Electrification Academy. This academy is a series of webinars on how to enable electrification. My name is Marion Santini. I work for the Regulatory Assistance Project. We are a global independent NGO, and our aim is to advance policy innovation and thought leadership in the community. Today, we will be talking about heat pumps in Italy and in Spain. So in webinars, we've heard a lot about developments about heat pumps in Nordic countries, where there already are a big share of the heating systems. And we also hear a lot about what's happening in Western Europe, where a lot of the challenge lies with the gas grid that is well developed and requires decommissioning while electrification is advancing. Now, we wanted to take a moment and discuss Italy and Spain because we were wondering what policies are appropriate in these countries to support heat pump deployment, but also what can we learn from these countries which can feed into the EU heating and cooling strategy. Looking at this context can help us to figure out how EU heat policy applies to regions that are in the south of Europe. So I've asked my colleague Lorenzo Sapochetti to join our discussion today. Lorenzo is part of RAP's Europe heat team, and he's looking at different countries in the EU and how they are designing their heat decarbonization policies. And those policies, of course, need to work for people. So Lorenzo, what do you think is similar about Italy and Spain, and what is different? So I'd like to take a moment to discuss that before we introduce our speakers who will give us a snapshot of both Spain and Italy.
Thanks so much, Marion. Well, Italy and Spain are really interesting cases for thinking about heat pumps beyond the usual cold country narrative that still tends to dominate a lot of the European debate. You know, you've said that Northern European countries like Denmark, the Netherlands, are often the countries that we tend to look at more frequently when talking about heat decarbonization and in particular heat pumps. Well, Southern Europe raises a set of slightly different questions that we'll try to unpack with the help of our speakers today. There are quite a few similarities between Spain and Italy, but I want to focus on two main ones in particular. The first one is scale. We're talking about two large Southern European countries, in fact, the largest two Southern European countries with geographically big sizes and big populations. There's around 50 million people in Spain, around 60 million in Italy, if I'm correct. So we're talking about large markets as well, not niche ones. And of course, the policy decisions that are made in these countries also matter at scale. The second similarity is diversity. And when I say diversity, I'm mainly talking about two things. First, climate diversity. Both countries have climatic conditions that vary a lot depending on the regions we are considering. Inland and northern regions tend to have colder temperatures, especially in winter, whereas southern and coastal regions experience a warmer climate with sometimes extreme summer heat waves. And this is particularly relevant for both countries. Cooling is no longer marginal, we know that, and rising household energy bills. On the other hand, we have diversity in the building stock. Both countries have a really diverse building stock, and often an aging one, with large shares of multi-apartment buildings. And this makes, control of the heating system and renovation at the household level particularly challenging. And that's quite different from the policy assumptions that we've historically seen in Northern Europe, where heat pump deployment is often linked to single-family homes and deep renovation. Where Italy and Spain really start to diverge, though, and where today's discussion gets really interesting, are the electricity systems that the transition plugs into, and the policy pathways that both countries have taken to start this transition. Spain, is coming to this with a very high and growing share of wind and solar on the grid, whereas Italy's power mix, while increasingly renewable, remains still more exposed to gas. And that difference matters a lot for heat pump economics and policy design. In addition to that, in Spain, there's been a growing effort to think about heating and cooling decarbonization in perhaps a more coordinated way. Whereas in Italy, Italy is now just coming out of a really incentive-heavy policy phase, which drove a rapid expansion of installations, but also reshaped the market in ways that are still being digested by households, installers, and manufacturers. So the technical potential for heat pumps is strong in both countries, but the policy and the market conditions shaping their uptake look quite different. And that's exactly what we want to explore today. So we're really lucky to have two very great speakers to help us do that.
Thanks a lot, Lorenzo, for this great teaser. And indeed, we're very lucky to have the speakers today. Before we start, I just have to let you know that our session today is recorded and that participants can put questions into a Q&A box, which is at the bottom of the page. And we will get back to these questions after the two presentations. So don't hesitate to add your questions now. I will take note of them and we'll get back to them at the end of the two presentations. So let's start. So I'm very happy to welcome Francisco Zuloaga and Gianluca Ruggieri. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with Francisco, maybe with an introduction. So you're a senior consultant for ECODES, a nonprofit organization based in Spain. Could you tell us in a few words about ECODES and what you do there?
Thanks, Marion. So yes, sure. ECODES is an environmental organization here in Spain. It touches upon many different environmental topics, and I've been supporting the work of ECODES on heating and cooling decarbonization for the past 5-6 years, I would say. ECODES happens to be the coordinator, and I myself am the coordinator of this platform for heating and cooling decarbonization that we launched in Spain, and which I will say a bit more about later on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And now, Gianluca, you are the president of an Italian renewable energy cooperative, ènostra, and you are also a lecturer and researcher who has worked extensively on energy efficiency. Can you tell us in a few words what ènostra is and what you do for them?
So ènostra, I think it's the biggest renewable energy cooperative in Italy. We have like 20,000 members, more or less, now. We started operation in 10 years ago, actually. The first bill that I received from ènostra was exactly 10 years ago. And of course, we produce some of the electricity that we sell, maybe 15% of the electricity that we sell. It's only from renewable sources, all the electricity that we sell. The one that we produce is from wind and solar. And then we have what we call energy services, which is we provide services to our members like PV installation on their houses or heat pumps installation in their houses. And also we provide some assistance to energy communities. We have so many energy communities now in Italy, and we have assisted some of them, maybe 70 across the country. And so we try to help the energy transition in Italy. We know that we are not enough to do the energy transition. We are very small, but I think that we are some kind of example even for bigger actors.
Thanks a lot. So I think everyone is waiting for this moment now. We're going to move into the presentation. Don't forget, if you have questions during the presentation, please pop them into the Q&A box, and we'll get back to them at the end of the two presentations, unless I notice there's a clear need for immediate clarification. In that case, I will bring it up as soon as possible. So let's start with you, Francisco. So your work shows that heat pumps are technically well suited for Spain, and yet uptake is uneven in the country. So can you tell us about the obstacles and opportunities in there?
Sure, absolutely. I'll try and answer your questions, Marion. I think the answers might be rather towards the end of my presentation, so please bear with me, and I'll try and provide a bit of context and some thoughts about Spain. So let me try and find my presentation. Here, share. So I guess you should be seeing my screen now.
It's uploading, I think. Yes, now I can see it.
Great. Yeah, so I'll share a few thoughts about heat pumps in Spain. Like I said before, ECODES coordinates. I think what's most important about our work here in Spain is this platform for heating and cooling decarbonizations that we launched and that we coordinate. It's made up of business association, green NGOs, and consumer organizations. So a very diverse set of stakeholders. Our members are ADAC, the District Heating Association here in Spain, AFEC, Heat Pump Association, ACID, Solar Thermal, CNI, Installer Association, Ecologistas and Greenpeace, two grassroots green NGOs here in Spain, Fundación Renovables, Green Building Council Spain, and EcoSurveys. They're a bit more technical, but still environmentally minded. CECU, one of the two main consumer organizations in Spain, and of course ourselves, ECODES, coordinating the whole thing. We advocate together for a transition towards clean heating and cooling. So most of what I'm going to be sharing today comes from what we've learned working in this platform. Now, if I say Spain, you probably think hot, and that is true. It can get really hot here, and in particular during a heat wave. That's a typical map from a heat wave with temperatures up to almost 50 Celsius in some parts of central and southern Spain. However, you see that temperatures remain relatively mild in some part of north and in particular northwest Spain. That's very typical from a heat wave in Spain. You also know that temperatures are rising. Summer temperatures are rising in particular in Spain. The frequency, the length, and the intensity of heat waves are increasing in Spain. I could give you 1,000 depressing facts and graphs about temperatures in Spain and in other places, but I think you get the idea. It is getting hotter in Spain. That means that we can no longer ignore the need for cooling. And believe me, this is coming from someone that's rejected the idea of cooling and of air conditioning for a long time. I have had, and many people in Spain have had to come to terms with reality and accept the fact that we're going to have to be adapting in the future. This is no longer a matter, this is not about the environment. It is not even a matter of comfort, I would say. This is about public health. This is about making sure that we protect the health of our people. Now, Spain is a very hot country, but like as Lorenzo said in his introduction, is also a country with a very diverse climate, with climate zones ranging from very cold subarctic conditions in some parts of the Pyrenees here and in the mountains of the north of Spain to very hot desert climate down here in the southeast of Spain. Most of the country, however, is in what we call temperate climate zones. That gives you, this and the previous map gives you already an idea of what heat pumps might be useful for in a country like Spain, and the role they have to play, in particular air-to-air heat pumps. Now, with this climate information in mind, with data from the building stock and from the existing heating technologies, this platform that I mentioned in the beginning, we set off to write a roadmap for renewable heating in Spain. And what that roadmap says in summary, sorry, the other way, is that if we're serious about the climate commitments, we need to move very quickly from a situation in which 70% of the heating is provided by fossil fuels today, and in particular gas, to a situation in which 100% of the heating is renewable. And in the renewable part here, you see heat pumps in blue, and that's both central heat pumps, central heating with heat pumps, and individual heat pumps. You see district heating here. And again, part of that is also heat pumps, and some biomass in some parts of the country where the resource is available. So we did this analysis, we calculated energy savings, we calculated CO2 emission savings, and we took our findings to the Ministry of Environment here in Spain. And they basically said, well, this is great analysis, but how much does it cost? So we went back to the drawing board for the past few months, and we've been crunching some numbers, and after hundreds of Excel sheets and graphs, we can summarize our findings in days. What do we see here? This is cumulative costs of both a business as usual scenario in blue and a zero emission scenario in orange. What these last two bars tell us is that the zero emission scenario is less expensive over time than the business as usual scenario. And the reason is that despite the investment in building renovation here and in equipment, heating equipment here being a bit higher, they are offset or outweighed, if you will, by the lower operating expenses of the zero emission scenario. I hope that was clear. There is lots of information and of assumptions behind this chart, so I'm happy to try and answer questions if there is any in the Q&A. Now, so the bottom line of this thing is that it is beneficial from an environmental, social, and economic point of view to undertake this heating and cooling transition. And of course, we'll take back our findings to the ministry, and we'll also share with them some thoughts on some ideas on how to make this transition happen. We think one of the main things that need to happen is that we have a stable, long-term financial support framework for heat pumps and for other clean heating technologies. To make a long story short, that is not currently the case in Spain, and it's not been for the past few years. We would also think, and this will be for you, that the cost of electricity would need to be reduced to encourage heating with electricity rather than with fossil fuels. And Rob has done great work on this front that we're currently translating into Spanish and that we'll be publishing soon. Other than those 2 points, I think that there are many other things that could be done. There are communications campaign. There is, of course, the training of professionals. Green public procurement could also play a role, and a government and governmental heating and cooling roadmap that sets in stone the direction where we're heading. We think that would be very beneficial for both people and for businesses to be able to plan their investments. And again, we've done work on this. RAB has done some work on that we've translated into Spanish, and happy to discuss again in the Q&A session. So to conclude, cooling is no longer a choice in most of Spain, and I hope that was clear from my presentation. Heat pumps to be at the center of Spain's heating and cooling transition, and that is because they're very versatile. They can cool, they can heat, and they can provide sanitary hot water, as you know. And finally, some policy changes will be needed to make sure that we have a successful transition and that we get the benefits of such a transition. So I think I'll leave it at that. And like I said, happy to answer questions.
Thanks a lot. Actually, there's a couple of questions for clarification in the chat, so I will ask them now. I think people were intrigued about the modeling you presented with the business as usual scenario and the investment into the net zero scenario. And I had two questions about that. The first one is, what kind of carbon price did you consider in the operating cost? And the second question is about the technology investments which you considered into the business as usual scenario. So what kind of technologies did you assume would happen under that scenario?
Under the business as usual.
On the business as usual, yeah.
Great. Okay, good questions. The CO2 price is quite important. Actually, as you know, it will be part of the ETS2 as of 2028 now, if I remember correctly. So it will have an influence in the cost of electricity. We took analysis from Bloomberg off the top of my head. They have forecasts to 2035 that we interpolated to 2025 and extrapolated until 2050, if you see what I mean. And that has quite an important impact in our analysis, and in particular in the business as usual scenario. Now, the business as usual scenario has pretty much the same technologies as the zero emission scenario. What changes is its share. So there will be, of course, gas boilers, although there will be like condensing gas boilers. There, at some point, I think we stopped including what do you call it? Gas oil boilers. Yeah. But there is a share, of course, there is an important share of heat pumps, even if in the business as usual scenario, and there is some district heating and some biomass as well. And what you don't see in the graph that I showed, but you see in the water heating graphs, is that we have some solar thermal, both for the business as usual scenario and for the zero emission scenario. But if this person wants to write to me directly, I'll be happy to share graphs and lots of information. We have thousands of them.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
When you were talking, there were further questions coming up in the chat about this. So what I'd suggest, Francisco, is while we are moving to Gianluca, I suggest you can have a look at these questions in the chat and perhaps answer directly there. Or if people want to reach out to you directly, that's also a possibility. And thanks a lot for offering that. Thanks a lot for the presentations. We'll come back to some of the other questions that are popping up. So if something comes up, don't hesitate to continue bringing your questions. In the meantime, I will turn to Gianluca. So as you said, you have the point of view of being active in a cooperative that engages directly with households and support also actors in doing the transition. So I ask you to look at the same questions. Obstacles and opportunities for moving to heat pumps in the particular Italian context. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marion. So what we will find is that there are some big similarities between Italy and Spain. We have already talked about ènostra, so I will skip this one. Talking about the climate, you see the average temperature in January and in July for Italy. You see how different it is in different places. And so this means that you have different needs, you can use different technologies, and you probably have different markets. So there are places where you can use air-to-air heat pumps for cooling, for heating. There are places where maybe you can include an air-to-water heat pump in the existing heating systems. Or in some places, and what we have seen in the latest year is that a lot of hybrid heat pumps. That means combined with gas boilers, so it's not a total electrification. It's just like a transition technology, let's say. In Italy, we have a lot of summer cooling needs increasing, especially in the cities, in the big cities. You probably see that I have a ceiling fan just above here, but it's no more enough during summer, especially during the heat waves. What we have seen in the latest year in Italy, we have seen that the tax rebate, 110% tax rebate, it was a huge incentive to do, I would say, rather deep renovation, because you had to increase at least 2 classes in the energy classification, in the energy certification. So the heat pumps were one of the possible technologies to do this increase. And you have that the market in Italy for heat pumps more than doubled in just a couple of years. After the end of these incentives, it decreased, but it decreased to a size which is more or less the double that before 2020. In 2021 and 22, we have seen a lot of hybrid systems, which means not only electrical systems, not only renewable systems. What we have seen in the latest 2 years is that air-to-water technology is increasing compared to other technology that are decreasing. The hybrid, I think they have lost maybe 80% of the market in the latest 2 years. So this gives some good information on where we are today. Of course, probably we don't need to stress too much that heat pumps are crucial in a flexible energy system, and we need to provide a flexible energy systems. And a flexible energy system needs all of these things. It's not just an issue of how we generate electricity, but all the rest. And heat pumps, of course, are technologies that are good for electrification and for energy efficiency, but they can provide the tools for demand management and in some cases for storage, especially when we think about domestic hot water storage, heat storages that can be useful in the grid. So what is the situation now? I hope that I will be able to explain these 2 graphs. On the left side, we have an economic evaluation for the final users. So it's not system cost. What we have seen for Spain was the total system cost at a national level. Here we make a focus on the cost for the final customer. And that was made a couple of years ago by REC, which is a research institute in Italy. And we see for single houses on the left and for an apartment in a multifamily building on the right. And for both of them, you see what happens when you have a tax rebate and when you don't have a tax rebate. So when you have a tax rebate, in most cases, heat pumps are convenient compared to gas boilers. Without tax rebate, in some cases, they can be convenient for single houses, but in most cases for apartment, they are not convenient. So in general, we can say at least three things. Of course, the analysis is far better for single houses compared to apartment buildings. So it means that we probably will need different strategies for these two kind of houses. Tax rebate at the moment is crucial with current electricity price. Of course, if we change the price, the analysis can slightly change. And the analysis says also that the economics are better when you have an integration with photovoltaics. And you can have a better integration with the photovoltaics, of course, when you are analyzing single houses. So what are the main barriers? We have economic barriers and we have non-economic barriers. Talking about economic barriers, there are some barriers on the capital expenditure, because we have, of course, high upfront cost, and with a tax rebate, this can be decreased, this high upfront cost. You have also high profit margin for the installer, because when you have higher costs, they have higher profit margin, and this is something that it's difficult to address. You have also some issues about operational costs, because we don't have actually ènostra as one tariff, one time of use tariff, but in most of electricity provider in Italy don't have any time of use tariff, and so this can be a problem to achieve the better economic analysis. And we have system charges. This is a typical Italian situation. This is something that we have only in Italy. We have these system charges, and they are strongly skewed in favor of gas. So it's you pay more of system charges when you use electricity compared when you use gas. Non-economic barriers. There are a lot of them, but we can say that it's all of them are some kind of systemic inertia, carbon lock-in, and we've always done is this way. It's something that you can listen from installer, from designers, from more or less everyone. There is also a key strength opportunity in Italy, because we have 50 companies that produce heat pumps. We have a long story, a tradition of producing heat pump. We have a lot of employees in this kind of technology. So my final slide is just to have some possible operational roadmap. In the first maybe 1 or 2 years, we can imagine to have a rebalancing of system charges to decrease the incentives towards gas. We can build up a structured national training program for designers, for installers, and for maintenance technicians. And also we need to develop and diffuse some standard approaches for remote control of heat pumps. in order to enable what we can do on the longer term. And in the longer term, we can think about a scale up of manufacturing, a diffusion of one-stop shops as provided by the energy, the EU directives. We don't have so many one-stop shops in Italy. And of course, we can think about a deep integration with smart tariff, flexibility markets, even through aggregators such as energy companies, but also energy cooperatives and energy communities. Now we have energy communities. Some years ago, we didn't have so many energy communities as today, and they, especially the biggest one, can provide this service as aggregators of the system. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot for this very comprehensive presentation and for touching upon all the different issues that are influencing the fact that heat pumps are actually worth it for households. So we have a lot of questions on the chat. So we will soon move to these questions. But before we do that, I would like to remind our audience that this is a series of webinars, so you can register with us if you want to receive the invitation to the future webinars. My colleague will put the registration link in the chat in a minute. So now I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Lorenzo, who has been listening very carefully and has actually a question for the speakers before we move to the Q&A with participants.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marion, and thanks so much to Francisco and Gianluca for these really great presentations. I can appreciate that the audience has already been warming up with really great spot-on questions. So I'll just try and ask the speakers to zoom out a little bit, and perhaps building on what Gianluca was saying about the non-economic barriers. I would like to ask you, thinking about your own work over the past few years, what is the one thing that you think people still get wrong or still misunderstand or tend to underestimate about heat pumps? It's a question for both speakers, of course.
Shall I go ahead, Gianluca?
Yes.
I can think of a few of them, actually. I think very few people understand how a heat pump really works, to be honest. I can also think many people think of heat pumps as this very expensive machine, but it doesn't need to be the case. But if I try to think about bring it down a bit to the Southern European perspective, I think the one that annoys me most is, and that we actually see and listen to in policy circles and not just at the bar, is this idea that heat pumps heat the city and contribute to the urban heat island effect. Now, let me explain a bit. It is true, heat pumps are moving heat from inside the building to outside the building. So it is true that there is some heat but transferred to the outside. However, the problem is not the heat pump. The problem is that we're letting the heat come into the city in the first place, and we're letting the heat get trapped in the city. So the first thing you need to do, and this is what we've called, and probably some other people call it the same way, a cooling hierarchy. What you need to do is work on nature-based solutions. First, you need to do proper city urban planning that allows the heat to get back into the sky somehow. You also need to work on passive building solutions, be it insulation or other solutions that do not let the sun get into the building. There are many things to do, and I think these actually answer some of the questions that there were in the Q&A. we, just to be very clear, we're not advocating for air conditioning everywhere. We are saying we need to address the cooling problem, the high temperatures in building problem. And of course, you do it in a smart way. You start with nature-based passive solutions, collective solutions, and only at the end you get into individual heat pumps.
So I would probably add some, because I agree with Francisco with most of the things he said. I mean, most of the things he said are applicable also to Italy. I will add that at least for my experience, when people has an air conditioning that can be used also as an heat pump during the winter, they will use it and they will find out that it's working and it's providing heat not so expensive as they think before they are using it. But the main thing is installers that say we have always done that way, and we have seen in Italy since the 90s, I think, a widespread installation of what we call caldaiette, which is small heating system, small gas heating boilers, and everyone think that with their own small boiler, they can do whatever they want. They can choose the temperature. They can choose when to heat and when not to heat. Because of course, before that, we had, especially in the multi-apartment buildings, we had system with practically no flexibility. They could be just on and off, and someone else was deciding when to turn it on and turn it off. So this love of small heating boilers is something that we need to address somehow. It was a news of today. 4 people died in Lucca because of wrong functioning of a gas boiler. So, but it's something that people take like it's normal, but it's not normal.
Thanks. Actually, I have a question which relates to that one. So there's a couple of people on the chat that are thinking about the issue of peak electricity demand and whether we expect the deployment of heat pumps in your countries to put further stress on the distribution network. And there are 2 sets of solutions that are put on this chat table. The first set of solution is to use hybrid heat pumps as a solution to mitigate this issue of peak. And the second solution is to mandate controllable heat pumps in order to make sure that we can deal with this issue. I wanted to check whether, how are these 2 sets of solutions considered in your national landscape?
Should I go?
Sure.
We have not considered hybrid heat pumps in our analysis, this roadmap that I mentioned before. I would personally favor this flexibility, this controls approach rather than hybrids. Although I can see how they can play a role in particular, and in some countries this is already happening. I think when we think about peak, we need to take a step back actually and say, okay, yes, heat pumps will contribute to peak load, but there is a whole electrification movement happening at this time, and heat pumps are only going to be a small part of that. So you need to be thinking how much transport is going to add to that and how you can gain in flexibility thanks to transport as well. And actually, a heat pump is kind of this magic thing that is able to with a bit of electricity, generate a lot of energy. So I personally think that it might be just a much smaller part of the problem that we're making of it.
Thanks. Gianluca, do you want to comment?
Yes, I would just like to add a couple of things. Of course, this can be also addressed with thermal inertia of buildings, but of course you need investment for taking profit of that. And this is when we talk about heat pumps for heatings. But we also have heating pumps for domestic hot water, and in that case, they will help a lot to address the issue of peak and to provide energy demand when you need energy demand, actually, because we have to change the way that we are thinking about the energy system. No, in some days and in some hours of the day, you need some demand, especially when you will have a huge amount of electricity produced by wind and photovoltaics. And I think that domestic hot water heat pumps, as well as electric cars, because if I go to work and I will leave my car plugged for 8 hours, and I will say, okay, manage it. When it's when the price is right, you will get the electricity, and the same thing I can do with my heating system for domestic hot water.
Yes, definitely. And I think, I mean, wanted to check also, like, what is the situation in your markets? I have a heat pump. Nobody came to check with me, that they wanted to control it, like, so I think there's still like the installation business is very much separated from the kind of offers you can get for your electricity consumption. So I was wondering, in your countries, are you seeing some market innovation around this?
At the moment, we don't see any significant market innovation for heat pumps. Only maybe for some innovative project that we are dealing with, but mostly for big buildings. So not for residential, normally maybe for commercial or tertiary buildings. That in that case, we have some experience of experimental experience, I would say. But also from the heat pump producer side, you have now on the market, most of the models that are on the market are not provided with remote control devices. So it's difficult to have this kind of integration between the market of the heat pumps and the market of electricity at the moment.
Thanks.
Yeah, from our side, I think what we're not seeing that kind of innovation either. I think what would be great to see is anything in terms of business models that moves some of the capital cost into operating expenses. I think the upfront cost of some of these machines is one of the main barriers to their uptake. I know, I mean, even in Spain, there's been 1 or 2 pilots about this, and I know of other examples in other countries like the UK and others that have this kind of business model, and I would love to see that encouraged in Spain as well.
Thanks a lot. So a lot, we can probably expect some innovation in the coming years if the recommendations that you presented are taken on board by the 2 governments. Now, I think it's the case in many countries in Europe where there's still a lot of progress to be made on policy in order to move the needle. The European Commission, as you know, is working on a heating and cooling strategy, which will be published together with an electrification action plan. So we are very excited about this. This will be released in a few months and will hopefully support member states in the rollout of ambitious and innovative policies to support heat pump market rollout. I wanted to check with you whether you have, from your side, expectations from the EU level. What do you think the EU level can do to support progress in your countries?
I think, I mean, there are many great organizations in Brussels, such as RAB and others, that are pushing on this front. And many of the things that you said in Brussels apply to Spain, and I would think to Italy as well. So, of course, I mean, we need financial support. We need some sort of rebalancing or of taxes and levies away from electricity and into gas or into the general budgets even. But I know you guys are pushing for that kind of stuff in Brussels already. I think from the Spanish perspective, what I would love to see is this idea of some sort of cooling hierarchy. So let's not just encourage air conditioning. Let's make sure that we do all of the other things that are a bit more sensible before we get into heat pumps where needed.
Thanks a lot, Gianluca.
And we did, sorry, Marion, just to
No
say
worries.
that we did share our roadmap and a study that we did on cooling in particular with the European Commission during the public consultation.
Great.
So I think that we have a lot of similarities with Spain, but on this issue, probably we have a big difference because, for example, our government seems, I would say, not really interested in implementing the EPBD, which should be, a directive. So it's difficult to think about what can the EU level do to incentivize, because they are not really interested in listening to that kind of level. But maybe one important thing that we have to stress, I mean, I will be a little bit political. I think that the main issue is affordability. And house affordability, in the house affordability issue, of course, energy costs are one important thing, but it's not the only important thing. It's one part of the big picture. And so I think that the main focus should be to address to the low income and middle income families to help them in a very difficult moment overall. So it's not something technical or specific for heat pumps or for heating. Is the affordability of living somewhere.
Yes, thanks a lot. I mean, that's a very good way to wrap up this Q&A question. Affordability is very important, and we certainly hope that this will be one of the central pillar of the upcoming heating and cooling strategy, which, as Francisco said, should also look at cooling and heating and cooling as a whole, as we just discussed during the session today. This was very interesting. Thanks a lot. So now, I mean, Lorenzo, you've been taking notes, and I see you're very active. So I'm going to give you the floor. What did you learn from today's session? What do you think we should take home and also take to the Commission who's drafting their heating and cooling strategy?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Marion. Yes, let me try and pull the threads together. There was a really interesting, really rich discussion. So I think first of all, both presentations, they've made it really clear that in Southern Europe, heat pumps are no longer just a winter heating technology. They can no longer be framed as such. cooling demand is really important. It's already there. It's growing fast. And it's becoming a central driver of electrification and household comfort. Actually, thanks, Francisco, for making that point. It's no longer just a household comfort issue. It's a public health matter, as you rightly underlined. So, very important point talking about the co-benefits, social and health co-benefits of heat pumps is really important. They also made clear that heat pumps are not just about replacing gas boilers. Increasingly, they sit at the heart of how we think about the future energy system. So just not only just heating and cooling, but flexibility as well, as Gianluca pointed out in his presentation. Secondly, we also seen how strongly the particular context in which heat pumps are deployed matters. So we've talked about climate diversity of building types, but also different business models have come up in the discussion, and how the market structure and how it's shaped contributes to defining what heat pump solution makes sense in each specific context. So it's really clear that a one-size-fits-all policy design would struggle to be implemented in practice. Also, we've seen that there is strong technical potential both in Spain and Italy, but the economics are still fragile in both countries. The high upfront costs, unstable incentives, the electricity pricing, we've talked a lot about this in the discussion, particularly system charges. So all of this plays a decisive role, often more the technology itself. So this links directly to the wider debates that we've been having on electricity pricing and rebalancing that were also explored in our previous Electrification Academy session. So if you're interested, please go and check it out. I think it's already available on RAP's website, and we'll make sure to share the link with you. So overall, what today's discussion really shows, there's no single Southern European model, but rather a set of different lessons that can be applied both in other countries and at the European level. So I've personally learned a lot from both contributions today. So before handing back to Marion, I just want to sincerely thank both Francisco and Gianluca for sharing these insights really openly and concretely.
Thanks a lot. We could have stayed here for another hour, right? There's a lot of questions in the chat going on about also the role of heat networks and, other questions which we didn't have the time to discuss. So I can't just read them all. There's a lot. So I encourage participants to reach out to the speakers for more information. I think there's a lot of excitement about the modeling which was done in the different presentations. So I think we should definitely stay in touch and think about future webinars on this topic. So I encourage our participants to register to our mailing list, and also don't hesitate to send us some ideas for future topics you would want us to cover in this series of webinars. Thanks a lot to our speakers. Thanks to Lorenzo, and thanks a lot everyone, and have a very nice day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.